Hi, welcome to the Improved Garage YouTube channel. So today we're going to be installing our hardwired radar detector in this 2016 Mini Cooper John Cooper Works. Now, you may remember that I did a similar installation in my 2015 Mini Cooper S, so you can take a look at that video too, but I think I'm going to do it better this time, so this is probably the one to watch. So what do we need? Well, the radar detector that we're going to be installing is the Radenso DS1. Which I already have that kind of hanging from my windshield. You can see it right there. And I've got this, this kind of thing that chills here and plugs in and gives us our power. It's, normal cigarette lighter adapter. And it's kind of a pain, It gets in the way of the gauges. It moves all over the place. It bounces off the dash, and, this or that. So, most radar manufacturers sell a hardwire kit for their radar detector. So this is the Radenso one. Now this was in my previous car, which is why it isn't all nice and clean and why there's already tape on this piece. But basically, here's how this works. So we have a button right here. It says Radenso on it. It's got a button and a light. This is the mute button, which is also on your radar detector and was on your cord, your previous cigarette lighter cord. This has two wires coming off of it. One wire, this black wire, goes to the radar detector itself. So this plugs into the side of the radar detector in the same place that your previous charger did. The other, we have this kind of black and red wire together. And this is supposed to be connected to ground, the black, and this red is supposed to be connected to switched power somewhere in the vehicle. So I'm going to show you how to run this in this car. I'm going to show you where I'm going to connect it, and I'm going to talk about a couple different things. One thing that I think is really cool that you should have for this are these, and I'll put a link in the description. So this is a set of kind of a modern take on a fuse tap. So these are fuses. And what you can do is you can take a fuse out of your existing car and you plug this in where the fuse is. And then you'll see here that there are two sets of holes. So in the bottom set of holes, you put in your factory fuse, and that protects the circuit that was already there. And then up here, you put a small fuse, and that protects this accessory. So you can take a fuse out of your fuse box and you can give yourself accessory power for your device. So we're going to be using that here. I'll talk about which size it is and all of that stuff, but that's definitely something that we're going to be doing. So, whenever I'm doing something like this, I like to start off by kind of planning out my installation. In this case, I've got my button. Now, I want my button to be on the driver's side, near my knee, by the center console. So, I'm going to run this from the driver's side across the passenger side because my fuse box is in the kick panel on the passenger side in this car. And then, near the kick panel, this is going to go up and feed my radar detector, and this is going to connect to the fuse box. So, to start off, let's get ourselves access to the car. Let's figure out what we need to take apart. So, we've got kind of this side panel here, which has a screw. We've got this plate up here, which really doesn't need to come out because we can tuck in behind it. And then we've got this plate right here where our fuse box is. And apologies for the mess. It is kind of messy in here. But I've been doing lots of projects lately and I honestly haven't been able to keep up on the car. Alright, so that guy just unsnaps. We can see our fuse box here, and there's another one that's kind of tucked up there. And then the centerpiece here is going to need to come out as well. There is a single screw here. I think it's a T15. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cover and the same cover on the other side off. Right, so we've got our plates off, and now what we're going to do is we're going to take our button and figure out where we want it. So here on the driver's side, I'm going to put my button up here, which is going to be forward enough of my knee that I'm not going to hit it all the time, but accessible from the driver's seat. So there's some like 3M adhesive on the back side of this. If you don't have the 3M adhesive, I recommend you get a roll. I'll put a link in the description to the one that I use. But it makes it really easy to do stuff like this. Okay. So there we are, that's stuck on there. Now, many interior cleaners are greasy or they leave a residue behind. So you might want to clean this with like, I used Carpro Eraser, which is a surface prep spray. But anything that's designed to be like a wax remover should work fine. Just if you haven't used it before on the interior, you might want to test in an inconspicuous spot. So what you'll see that I'm doing here is I'm just kind of tucking my wire through this hole, and I'm going to grab it on the other side. So here I am on the passenger side again. Here's my wire. Grab it and pull it all the way through. Over here, we're just gonna tuck this up out of the way. Kick panel, I guess this would be. This just kind of tucks in and it snaps into place like that. Okay, so now we're really done on the driver's side. Pretty easy. So over here we have this wire, and we've got the black that needs to go up, and we've got the red and black that need to go over. All right, so we're gonna kind of come up and go across the back side of this. There's like a knee airbag here. You want to kind of tuck this harness up and out of the way so that it's not coming down on your passenger's feet, because they will kick it and they will ruin it and they will rip it out of your fuse box. Promise you that. And then you get it nice and placed where you want it. We're going to want to zip tie it to another harness that's nearby to keep it up there. And just kind of, tuck it along the way behind any sort of bars and beams and things that might get in your way. That's up and out of the way. And the next thing that I'm going to do is just take a zip tie here. And I'm just going to tie this to a harness that's here in the area. It doesn't really matter which one. I just want to keep it in place. I just want to keep it tight. I want to keep it out of the way of my passenger. So we've got this tied up, just like that. So now I'm going to want to run my wire up here to my radar detector, and my other wire is going to stay down here, this red and black. So I actually taped up a little bit too much. I'll just remove a little bit of this tape. So I'm going to pull this out, this weather strip, and I'm going to run my black cable up behind this. And as I run it up, I'm going to kind of chase it by putting this back in to hold in all the places where I've already got it pushed, where I want it to be. Now when I get up to the top here, there's an airbag. and I want to be behind the airbag, so you can actually see this white right here with the red line on it. That's the airbag. So you can kind of put your fingers right behind there. There's a bunch of space between it. It's just floating in there. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it behind the airbag. Okay. So now I have my cable, I got behind my airbag, and I'm on kind of the windshield side of the headliner. So let's get this snapped back into place. We've got our rubber back in, all the way in. Okay. Now, the next thing that we want to deal with is this going up here. So we can kind of pull this back. I really need an extra hand for this. So what you want to do is you want to kind of work this all the way across. And you want to tuck it underneath the headliner, kind of like in this area where my thumb is, or my pointer finger is. And you want to kind of come all the way down the front there. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so now we've got our radar detector plugged in, and we're going to kind of continue running this up the trim. We're going to tuck this slack in above the headliner. Okay, so this shows you what our radar detector actually looks like. So there you can see the unit plugged in. It's got, the button and the cable's all nice and hidden. So it looks really clean. Here's a picture from the side, and there's obviously no cord dangling down on my dash. So we've got this all snapped back in. I obviously had that slack here. Now you don't have to put it up here. You can put it down here if you want to. You can kind of pull it back down and end up with a bundle of slack here. That might even be a better choice than the choice that I made. But I have a lot of room up here, so in my case, I just decided to put it up above the headliner. So now we're going to look here. So here is my power cord. Alright, so in the Mini Cooper, right up here, you'll see a fuse box. Where are my fingers pointing? So here's a couple green fuses. So these are all open fuses that aren't being used for anything. Not the fuses themselves, but the spots next to them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fuse tap, and it's the normal size fuse tap, and I'm going to put a fuse in the rear side of this, just like that. I'm using a 5 amp fuse in this case. I'm going to plug this in so that the one furthest the wire is down. So it's going to be like that. And what that should do for me is that should give me power on this little wire. So let me test that. Yep, I have power on the wire. And that's going to be where I get my power for my Radenso. Cool. So, now let's take a look at our wires here. So, our wires here are super long. And I've got a fuse in my new fuse holder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel this back, and I'm going to cut this short. And you might not want to do that because maybe, you're going to move this to another car in the future or something like that. But for me, it's a $30 harness. I'll just buy a new one if I go to another car. All right. So we have our red wire. And we have our crimp connector. And we're going to crimp that together. Okay, so that's done. I also want to just take this and zip tie it to a harness nearby so there isn't pressure being put on that fuse tap to be pulling it out. Now next, I need to ground this. So I've got this black wire, it needs to be grounded somewhere. There is a factory grounding point right here. So if you look, you'll see there's like a bunch of brown wires and a ground right next to them, so you can use that if you'd like to. It's probably a good choice. Alright, so I found this eyelet that's going to fit on that bolt, that factory ground bolt. So we're going to put the wire in here. We're going to crimp this down. I'm going to heat shrink the shrink. So now I'm going to put this ground underneath this nut with all these other ground wires. Alright, so we got this hooked up. There's our Radenso, just lit up, GPS connected. Everything looks good. So now we're going to put all this back together. So we've got our panel right there that needs to get reinstalled. Tucks in, it snaps into place. Done. Then over here, keep our wiring out of the way. Might have to pull this rubber back a little bit. So we're going to snap this into place. There should be 3 snaps. And then we can put our rubber weather strip back on. Now, this can be a little challenging, the sill plate, because there are these plastic clips here, and they like to come out of this top piece, and you can't really install them. You need a pry tool. So I use this guy, snap-on tool. Tecton makes one. I'm actually getting a couple from Sonic to try those out. But I'm gonna take this tool. They're kind of gonna, you'll see these little plastic retainers like this guy right here. And we're just gonna pop those out with this tool, and then we're gonna slide those into the slot where they belong and put this back together. So there's what one looks like when you remove it. So we'll slide this in like that. Another one. Slide that in. Okay. So now we're just going to kind of line these pins up with their holes, just like that. And then that can all be snapped back into place. So there we are. Now normally when I'm done with an installation like this, I'll use this as an opportunity to vacuum the carpets. So you can see, you know, I've got some electrical tape here and other crap. So we'll vacuum that all up, clean it up, and we're good to go. And there you can see our Radenso DS1 installed in our Mini Cooper. So Thank you for watching, and have a great day.